So within Excel then what we're going to be looking at is data validation and how we can create lists within that as well. And what this is going to do is it's going to help you keep all your data really concise and exactly how you want it formatting within your tables or within your data sets like this. We've got a mix of text, we have numbers, and we've got decimal places all across this. And what we can do here is we need to start to look at this and how we can actually make this, concise so that people aren't going to be, adding in different things to what we need to do. So what we're going to do to understand this then is we're going to look at column C to start out with. And what we can do is press the Control-Shift-L, and if we were going to add more data, or we knew that somebody else was going to add more data, we can see here that we only have 1 to 8 values within this. So we know that all of our values within column C need to be 1 to 8. So what we can do is we can select column C like so, or if you want to use the shortcut for it, you can press the Control and space bar, and that's going to do exactly the same, selecting the whole column there. Once you've done this, we need to go up to the data, and then we can come across to here, and you're going to see this little part in the data tools called data validation. So we can click into that, and once you can click into that, we can see that it currently says within the settings tab that we allow any value to be placed within that. Now, we know that this isn't the case, and we don't want any value to be placed in there because we don't want somebody to be typing in there or adding anything different that they don't want to be. So we know that our values need to be between 1 to 8. So we need to change this, and we can see that we get all these different options. So, you can change it so that people can only input times or dates, or if they only have to input a certain text length, for instance, then this is kind of where you could implement that point there. And we know for us that this is going to be a whole number. And once we selected a whole number, we can see that we get all these extra drop downs that start to apply here. So what we have now at this point is the data. So we know that our data, and when we go for this drop down, has all of these different options here that we can set, and we can make it so that people can only select these points. So we need to select between, because we know that our minimum here is going to be 1, and that our maximum that we could possibly select within this column is going to be 8, because we know that there's only 8 generations, for example. So what we can do is we can press OK at that point there, and we can drop down here. And when we drop down, say we were to input a 9 for whatever instance there, then what we're going to do is press enter and get this error here, because this error doesn't fit within what we've put as the data that needs validating, and it falls outside of that criteria that we've just set. So we can either click the retry and we can have another go, but if we press 8 we know it works, but anything else other than our values between 1 to 8 are going to fall short of that, and it's not going to let us input that data. So what we can do then is we can also make this so that people understand what we're wanting to get from them as well in terms of data. So selecting column C, we can go back into the data validation, and we can see that within our settings we have this as well. But what we can do is we can drop people a little kind of message as well. So when somebody selects a cell within column C, they're going to get this message here. Need to be within 1 to 8. Okay, so just a quick little message there for people, because then you know that people need to be put in a value of between 1 and 8. So what we can do now is we can do that, and we can select it, and as we click into these cells now, you can see that people are going to be getting these values, so that they know that when they're clicking within that particular column, that is a value of between 1 and 8. And it doesn't apply for any of the other columns because we've not applied any validation kind of criteria to any of them, but as soon as they're clicking in column C, then that's going to give them that option there. So what we can also do is we can change some of the error messages that people will get as well. So we can just select the column again, back up to validation. We know that we've left them a message, and now we have the alert. So we can change the alert that we got as well. So we know from before we got a little kind of red warning there, and you can change it to all these different ones here. So we can say providing the information, and we can give them the error message that we want. So of 1 to 8, and then we can do that there. So then say even after this point that they input a 9, then we can see that we've changed the error message that we get there. So it just gives them a little bit of information. It says change the value to 1 to 8, which is exactly what we put in there. And then obviously the person will be like, all right, cool, I've missed that message, but we can see that it's not letting them kind of easily make that error without kind of getting plenty of pop-ups there for them. So what we can also do is, if we don't want to give them the option of what they would input, then we can use something called lists as well within this. So say for instance, we're looking at this column here up at the top for column H, and we can see there's quite a few different options that you can get within column H, but you know, we want to be the ones that set this here and how we work it. So there's different ways that you can kind of lay this out. Some people like to go to the end of the data and then go as far as they can and set this up. Some people like to, you know, stick it on the bottom. I wouldn't advise sticking it on the bottom just in case your data falls down. But what I normally do is, if you're working on something like this, is just stick in a little settings sheet here. And what we can do is, once we have our settings sheet, is you have the option here of creating a list yourself. So you can just, you know, work on that, say, and create your list of different types. So you can say ground, electric, and so on and so on. But for me, what I like to do is use Excel's functions within this. So we can say, right, I want the unique of what is already available. So we have this here, and we're just going to select the cell H2, pressing the Control Shift and down. And now it's going to select all of the bottom, or all the way down to the bottom of the data. And we can just press enter there. And we can see that by using this unique value now, we're going to get all of these different types that we had, and it just saves us writing them out there. Makes it a little bit easier. So we just press Control A, Control C, copy it over, and then we're just going to paste the values on there. And it just gets rid of that values there for us, and we don't have to worry about that anymore. But what we can do now is, when we are working within this column H now, we know that we only want it to be these type of things. So again, we can click into column H, we can go back into the data validation part, but within the settings at this point now, we don't want the value to be any, we want this to be a list. So we can create the list, and you have the options of, you know, manually typing these out here if you wanted to do separated by a comma, or what we can actually do is refer to a specific range. So we can use this little button at the side here, going into the settings, and we can select our range here and then press enter. And we can see that that's then come up in the source, and we can click OK. So that now whenever we click into H, we can see that we get this little drop down box here, and we can just select our type that we want. And again, it's going to make it so that we are just, you know, giving people the options that we want back from them, and they don't have the ability to change that at all. So what you can do at this point then is just select the data, and we can go and make this alphabetically if we want to do. And then at least we know when we're working on this then that everything will come up alphabetically, so that as we select it, it will also look that way as well. So we can see that this has now made that alphabetical as well as we move down things. But if we want to add something, so say we just make one called test, just so that it stands out a little bit more, what we can do is, when we look now within this, we can see that that isn't going to show up because we don't have that selected as a particular range. So what you could do is you can go back into this. So what you could do is you can go back into H, and you can go back into your data validation, and you can just add an extra row onto there if you wanted to do. Or, so all you would do is just change that to 20, and you know, then that would include the test, because that would now come up at the bottom. So again, because it's not alphabetical, we'd have to go back through and sort. But one easy way to change this, and one way that we could potentially add this, is if we add the test onto the bottom there, and we can see that this has now taken it out because we've just pressed Ctrl and Z to get rid of these. Then what we can do is we can hold the Shift key, and we can move this up to where we want it. So say we want that to go, and we'll put it up underneath electric just to show you at this point here. So make sure that you're holding the Shift button when you do this, and that will move it up there. And what it'll do is it'll pop that in your list for you. This isn't something that you can just, unfortunately, just kind of click and drag as we've done before, because when you click and drag it, it's going to give you this error telling you that there's already data within that point there, within that cell, sorry, that you're trying to move to. So you need to hold the Shift button and move it up that way. And you can see there that it's moved up. It's moved all the cells down one. And you might be thinking, oh, well, my data validation there is only going to go to 19. It actually moves it down one for you as well. And it adds on that extra one, so it automatically gives you that 20 like rows that you wanted there initially, and we can see that it's still kept the water in, and we have the test there. So it's just a quick little way of using it there. And you know, you can just then kind of quickly just select data again, so just Control Shift and down, and then just select that data and make it alphabetical again. So hopefully that helps you out in terms of being able to input data really precisely, getting the input of the person that you're wanting to do out really kind of precise as well. And if you have any questions about any of this data validation, then don't forget to ask, and we'll hopefully see you in the next video.